Within the city, at King's School, and called to Bay, was announced as having 0 awakening value. When listening to this, he was astonished, ability to move, while the nearby boy began to nap, saying he had been abandoned by God. The girls also questioned why someone like him. I was studying at that school. Suddenly, the director said I was destined not to wake up, and that he needed to protect the school's reputation, so partially ordered I would drop out of school, which made him even more shocked. He argued that there was no rule that obligated students with low awakening value to leave, but before I could keep talking, a stone hit your head. He quickly turned, asking who had done that, but he only saw bullies telling him to leave, because I would be luckier. Soon other students began to surround him, demanding your expulsion, but amidst the chaos, a voice asked everyone to stop. Was a student named Lyle. She also rebuked them for being cruel to someone who had studied with them. Even so, the bullies tried to convince her to walk away from Abe, saying she might even fail to wake up. Bill ignored the threats and approached Abe. She told him not to believe, because the test could be wrong, and the value of up was only a guide. After all, the story showed that people with high values have already failed, while some with low values were blessed. But Abai replied that he didn't trust gods. 3,000 years ago, monsters appeared and mankind tried to use nuclear weapons against them, but they survived and got even stronger. Among all those monsters, 4 kings were born from the rifts. The human territory was quickly won over their leadership, and civilization came close to extinction, but not at the height of despair. 2 divine statues came down from the sky. Since then, humans began to pray for these statues. Those with high values received blessings, while those with low values remained common, and those who had 10 or less were called abandoned by God. So, Abai said that mankind still depended on the gods, except him. Then, he invoked a system to verify some information. While looking at Lyle, he realized that even though he hadn't woken up, develop a system, tried to check Lyle's details, but her level was blocked, beyond your authority. Even so, he understood that he was a transmigrant with the system, and that it would level up killing monsters. With this determination, left school, swearing that on up day in 100 days would surprise everyone. He believed that true strength, it wasn't in the gods, but in your system, and invoked him to reveal his status. Then finally, saw that all his attributes were still at the level, however, when analyzing them, realized he could get stronger easily. Killing monsters, different from ordinary people trapped in talents weak to. From that day, swore to start evolving. And saw, he raised his hand and pointed to the ground, declaring that it would start right there. But actually, your fingers were pointing for the ants that crawled on the ground. One of the ants seemed to notice it, and thought it was strange. Suddenly, the system warned that ants had no level, and that killing one would only give you 0,1 of experience. Yet, the system advised efficiency. eBay admitted that he kills them one by one. It would be a waste of time. This meant he always carried. He then sprayed on ants and gained 0.1 of experience. As they died, and reaching without mercy. An old man and a child watched it from afar. When seeing the scene, the child asked if the ants would take revenge, and Grandpa told him not to learn that kind of behavior. In Quantumizo, the eBay suddenly stopped listening to a system notification. The system reported that it had killed 100 ants, and unlocked a mission to kill 10,000 ants, and win great strength of ants. When I discovered that there was a skill book-like reward, he accepted the mission immediately, but an hour later, had to admit that killing ants wasn't just time-consuming, but also tiring. The system then congratulated on reaching level 2, and gave him 2 points of attribute. He quickly opened the status window to decide where to place as the reward was great strength of ants, concluded that it should increase strength, so decided to put the 2 dots on that attribute. Right after, felt a wave of energy run through your body, as his strength rose to level 3. Within to dance again. While the old man warned the child to avoid people like Abe. After countless sprinkles, or system finally reported that 10,000 ants had been killed, he was surprised to see that the mission was over. Quickly checked the reward he had received. He won the ants' public enemy title. Then would the ants attack him, but with half the strength. Also analyzed the ability great strength of ants, and saw that she increased her power in 10 times for 3 minutes, with 2 hours of recharge. He got excited, imagining using the skill to turn battles against powerful opponents. Thank you for your efforts not being in vain. He decided to learn the skill. When you touched her, a wave of energy came out of her and entered her body. He felt the power being transferred while closing my eyes. After a moment, opened his eyes and realized that the process was already over. Then, decided to test the skill on a nearby tree. He assumed a fighting stance and gathered all his strength in the body, raising the fists, then threw a powerful punch. The force was so absurd that the tree was thrown, and all that was left was the broken trunk. He looked at the bound fist, and he was sure that a cope like that, I would even support Mike Tyson. The next day, at school, Bay was again hit by a rock. But before it hit your head, he deflected quickly and fell with his bare hand. Dad turned around in anger to see who had played near bully, made fun of, and sent Bay away, or the next stone would hit. When Bay stood still, they asked if he really intended to stay. To their surprise, he lightly raised the stone in his hand and crushed it easily with 2 fingers, leaving the bullies shocked. Then dropped the bag on the ground and advanced against them. Without hesitation stuck his fist in the bully's stomach. With immense strength, his expression squirmed with shock and pain. Even so, he refused to believe that I was going had so much strength, since it was someone abandoned by God. By then calmly said that he had held back, and told them to remember his words. He declared that first they would become smart. The second thing was that it wouldn't have mercy the next time they provoked him. After that, challenged anyone who was dissatisfied with taking a step forward, but the bullies fled quickly. While Bai took her bag and muttered that they were cowards, and she had witnessed it all, and was shocked to see that someone abandoned by God had so much strength even before up. Later, during class, B heard the teacher asking for attention. He said King Siri was being tormented by the faceless man and asked everyone to stay alert. Also warned them not to go out alone until the authorities eliminated the threat. When seeing this, Bay remembered that the faceless man was a strange giant made of cement that killed anyone who faced it. In addition, the teacher pointed out that he was slow, but warned that it should be reported immediately in case it was seen, and the students agreed. Bay, though, realized that the danger was increasing and that he needed to get stronger by other means. Later that night, at home, he took a knife and started beating white chickens, gaining a little experience for each. While holding one in his hands, realized he had no money to keep buying so many. Suddenly, the system reported that it had unlocked the space inventory after killing combat creatures. In addition, the system store had also been unlocked. Finally, the gold exchange system has been activated, displaying an exchange rate from 1 to 100. When seeing this, he realized that the system revealed more information with each death and quickly exchanged gold for money. In an instant, a gold coin was converted into cash, and he kept looking at the notice. Realized that only powerful creatures yielded experience in gold, enough to turn into money. Thinking about it, decided to buy more white chickens as the next step in search of strength. The next day on the market, he delivered the money and declared that he would buy all the chickens. The owner, who was about to beat one of them, stopped immediately when he saw the money, and well then the chickens started and went. He walked into an alley. Desert pulled out his knife and started killing the chickens. In a short time, gained several experience points, receiving 1 of experience for every death. Soon the system congratulated him on reaching level 3. He granted 2 attribute points. Although, yes, realized that killing chickens no longer brought so much progress, but your thoughts were interrupted by the sound behind him. Instinctively, he turned around holding a knife and a dead chicken. To your surprise, there was a little girl looking at him. His appearance scared quickly, and she started to cry, then ran away, calling his mother and accusing him of being a pervert. Voy was completely confused, but the girl's mother appeared, holding a broom and demanding to know who was there. Intimidated your daughter. He tried to explain hurriedly that it was all a misunderstanding, but the woman's anger only increased. She lifted the broom and started hitting him, repeatedly, doing Voy fear training. No final, he was thrown on the floor all hurt, and realized that killing chickens in public was risky and needed to find another method. Suddenly, he heard 2 men commenting that workers had given up again in the killer. One of them added that the butcher had been hurt, but the business was still thriving, even with fewer employees. When listening to this, Bay wondered why he hadn't thought no killer or before, then approached the 2 men, still holding the knife, and asked if he could ask a question. Their madness scared, and they started screaming in a panic. The 2 ended up running away, while screaming that there was a ghost. Seeing this, he threw the knife on the ground, and explained that he just wanted to ask whether the killer needed workers. There, no matador handed in his resume to apply for the job. While the boss analyzed, he commented that he had heard that the former butcher had resigned after his hand. But the boss replied that his establishment was just a small business, and well then he quickly explained that he didn't want a salary, just make a deal. When listening to this, the boss immediately thought of money, and Bay continued, saying that he had bought many animals to prepare for the day of awakening. Even so, the boss questioned how he could eat it all by himself, and Bay replied that he had many classmates, and promised that no meat would be wasted. But they had also asked. The boss was curious, and asked what it was. And the bee said he wanted to personally take care of the slaughter, to train your courage. Shortly after, started killing chickens, and gained 1 experience for each. He got pregnant, realizing that this was a way efficient level up. In addition, recalled that larger animals would probably give more experience. So your Lu returned to a cow that ate quietly nearby. He smiled lightly at her. He thought it was both his duty, how much your way to become stronger. But the cow noticed something strange, and suddenly jumped away, trying to escape, and was surprised for a moment. But soon said that anyway, she would end up being killed by him. Then he started her with the knife in his hand, telling her to stop. The cow ran towards the exit, but soon noticed something wrong and stopped suddenly. When he looked up, saw the hind walls around, and began to sweat nervously. The bee saw this and declared that she could no longer run away, then jumped forward, shortening the distance quickly, and with the decisive movement of the knife took off his ribbon. Soon after, the cow fell lifeless to the ground, while a bee stood on her, murmuring that even a simple cow dared to show his determination. But when he realized how efficient that method was, started laughing excited. Suddenly, our system notified that he had won 30 experience points and cow data, confirming that stronger creatures made him evolve faster. At this time, the boss appeared and commented with some astonishment that a bee looked like he was born to be a butcher. But the expression of Voy changed suddenly when he heard him growl nearby. He asked the boss what that was, and received an answer that it was a beast, but specifically a one-eyed wolf. When seeing this, the bee was excited by the presence of the creature and asked to see her. After that, the chief led him to the beast cage, and bee finally saw the wolf with 1 eye, level 10, with 120 of combat power. Even hurt, he could still feel the creature's strength, and the system confirmed that its speed was so great that his victims could not escape. Realizing in base attention, the boss explained that his relatives had captured the wolf, and that their meat would be sold at a high price because of the nutrients. When you hear it, and quickly realized that it killed him, would yield a lot of experience. Then told the boss that a classmate wanted to buy the beast for day, and asked the price. The boss replied that it would cost at least 50,000, and it started to sweat when it heard that, since I didn't have that much money. But if he killed the wolf on his own, would gain experience, and gold to convert to money. Then suggested the boss and fight a creature that could help you to train your courage. The boss warned not to have reckless ideas, for the beast was mortal, but Ibai still smiled, and said he was already prepared for the situation. Like that, after all your slaying sort of pigs, which had 10 points of attack, it was your letter up the sleeve, adding this to the skills he had. He was confident he could defeat the wolf and level up. At this time, the wolf started to get agitated, and violently pulled the current with a sudden surge of strength. He managed to break free and went against Ibai, but Ibai believed the timing was perfect, and quickly activated your skill, great strength. Seeing that, the boss yelled at him to be careful. But the wolf was already advancing fiercely. Voy faced the creature head-on, and managed to dig his knife deep in your body, making to fall to the ground. After that, Ibai turned to the boss, and commented that he seemed to be braver than anything. The chief looked at the dead wolf on the ground, completely confused by Voiter, killed him with only 1 blade. Impressed, said he was a born butcher, and agreed to let him work part-time. The system also reported that Bay had risen 2 levels and earned 5 attribute points, and it left you with. In addition, he developed something called a wolf claw. The item had 50 attack points, but it required level 10 to use. How he only had level 5. Realized she couldn't equip him for now. Suddenly the boss remembered that the wolf now belonged to Bay and confirmed the 50,000 deal. Bay paid quickly and asked to be notified in case it captured from other beasts in the future, and the boss agreed. The next day, at school, they'd casually imagined how great it would be. Your feast with the whole wolf. Suddenly, the teacher started talking about artists, martial and pharmaceutical. He explained that these professions existed to support the sports, where martial artists were responsible for combat and pharmacists specialized in healing. But the mind, Ibai, was focused on the system store equipment that he still couldn't buy. He felt trapped, knowing that only killing beasts like a butcher could earn money and experience. At this time, someone touched your shoulder, making yourself turn quickly. He was startled to see Loyal asking him to write, and insisting that the class was important for the awake. In response, Ibai confidently stated that it would certainly awaken. However, Leo wondered where he got so much confidence from. At this time, a piece of chalk flew through the room and hit the forehead of Ibai. The teacher then ordered, severely, that he stop talking during class. After some time, the lesson finally ended and Ben left alone. Leo observed his figure moving away with a complicated expression, remembering how distracted he looked. He felt that as the class representative, should support it. So that afternoon he decided to follow him. On the way home, saw Bei walking, and began to think that perhaps he had exaggerated by worrying about him. After a while, he has reached his destination. By noting the establishment, Leo felt a certain distrust. Yet she approached and opened the door. As soon as the door opened slowly, a wave of nervousness took over her. The sight before her eyes shocked her, and she ended up passing out right there. Not long after, slowly regained consciousness. When near vision brightened, noticed a close human figure, but his face suddenly turned red when you feel a hand pressing on the front of your chest. Scared, embarrassed, she immediately slapped Bei and the pervert monster. The force of the blow made I would stumble and fall to the ground. He quickly explained that it was just him. When Lyle realized this, demanded, furiously knowing what he was trying to do. Bei responded irritated that she had interrupted her pig's beat, and still had left him covered in blood. When listening to this, she finally noticed the dead pig over there, and well then explained that he had just been scared when he saw her pass out and pressed on her chest to help her breathe. But his words only made him think even more, and she asked him to stop talking, since no one would have imagined that he would be there, slaughtering a pig. After that, she asked, because he had gone there to kill a pig. He explained that his poverty had forced him to work, beating animals in part-time, then asked kindly why she had followed him. Beale tried to answer, but stopped when realizing that I couldn't admit that I was worried about him. Then talked about the school field trip to the museum and encouraged him to go. When listening to this, Bei reflected on his time in that world and realized that he needed to learn his story. He hit his chest and assured for sure that he would. Leo was satisfied and turned to leave, but before he walked out the door, took a stern look at him and warned him not to mention what had happened that day. And Bei collapsed nervously. She then closed the door tightly, leaving the moment entirely stunned. After walking a little, Leo suddenly stopped and crouched, realized how embarrassing his actions had been. The next day, inside the bus, the teacher explained that the visit to museum would address the origin of the vacation and the history of sports. When listening to this, students praised the Pope and the Marshal for saving mankind. Leo also agreed with the head, and Bei noticed his expression. Curious, asked if she admired the Marshal. Leo promptly admitted that yes. She said she wanted to be like them, able to kill beasts and protect mankind. This made Bei wonder what she knew about the gods. Explained that they left traces as the power to transform humans in a way. After hearing that, Voy said he had a question and commented that numerous statues divine had appeared around the world, although there were huge new cities. Their city was the only one that didn't have a statue. Leo firmly responded that, if he actually studied, wouldn't ask such a silly question. She explained that the first two statues went down a long time ago, and that many others appeared after, except one that remained unchanged. All others created awakened. But she admitted that she doesn't know why their city, despite being so big, does not have a statue. So the place had received the name of land abandoned by God. Shocked by this and felt that the reality of that world, it was very different from your previous life and quite strange. His thoughts were interrupted when the teacher announced that they had arrived at the museum. Once they entered, the teacher ordered the script and total attention to exhibitions. As they walked around, Leo looked at the statue of the Marshal with admiration, and Bei commented that it was rare to see the calm, class representative admire someone so deeply. The loyalist responded by saying goodbye was special, for he had made the kings of the holidays sign a truce with the Pope. Suddenly, the environment became tense when someone appeared after them, and came immediately, felt a sinister aura, and pulled Lyle closer. She warned him not to act in a way that would cause misunderstandings, but he ignored the protest and stood in front of her, asking you to be careful. He also said that the female figure caused him a bad feeling. Then other people around noticed a tall individual that remained motionless. The figure stood still until its mantle, revealing a faceless grotesque body. Seeing that, Lyle trembled, recognized him as the faceless man. The creature immediately let out a shrill scream that scared everyone and started to destroy the museum, and raised the Lyle as I murmured that open mouth was still a feature of the monster. Panic spread, while the students tried to understand how a beast had appeared inside the museum. Bei took Lyle to a safe place and told her to help the teacher, who will evacuate all. As he faced the creature, Leo thought he had gone crazy, for he was no match for the faceless man. Even so, Voy assured that he could handle it. Suddenly, the teacher will show up and ask Lyle out, but she explained that Bei was still inside. When the teacher asked where he was, Leo realized that he was already missing. Bei, now at level 5, advanced confidently towards the creature. He saw the faceless man holding his neck. First, checked the status of the creature and found out she was level 7, with low thickness but high defense, and realized that he was faster and more skilled, so believed that it wouldn't be difficult to beat her like that, began to circle around the creature to distract it, then landed near her, even more. Then deliberately drew your attention, silently planning to betray her away, so that the remaining people could escape. At this time, the creature noticed him and let out a loud scream, then throw a piece of stone towards you and was shocked by the speed, but managed to dodge narrowly, as the stone bumped against the wall. He began to wonder how the creature could make ranged attacks, if supposedly it had little intelligence. When looking at the big hole in the wall, he murmured, impressed by the brute strength of the beast, but then realized that the room behind the wall, it was the women's bathroom, was immediately accused of being a pervert, and quickly explained that it had been unintentional, then turned his attention to the creature. He saw the monster lift an even bigger piece of the ground and realized that he could no longer hide his strength. When the huge stone flew towards you, he finally activated his great strength skill, power is thrust in his fists, and with the only punch he shattered the rock, spreading the fragments through the air. After that, raised his fist again and hit the creature's face. The impact was so strong that it took the monster away, making it collide with a wall, before falling to the weakened floor. Boy watched while the wall began to toll over the creature's body, and wondered if she had finally died. However, the monster soon rose from the rubble. Voy was already waiting for this, knowing that he needed overcome your high defense to win, then immediately ordered the system to open the store to buy a gun. The system displayed the available items. The Azure Sword cost 200 gold and made 50 attacks at level 10, while the Eternal Sword gave 60 of attack for 500 gold, but it also required a minimum level. Even so, he took the weapon without limits. At the same time, looked around to make sure no one discovered your secret and bought the Eternal Sword. Once the up-head raised the gun and threw a blow at the creature. He tried to react, but IB moved quickly, hit him with enormous power. This time, he felt that the creature's defense had finally been broken, then reactivated the great force, and delivered a devastating blow with a fist. The monster's body shattered and exploded into fragments, spreading debris through the air before falling to the ground. At this time, the flight echoed through the museum, calling for Voy. Soon she arrived with authorities and asked where the faceless man was. Ibe replied calmly that he was now scattered throughout the exhibition hall. Suddenly, her system reported that he had reached level 6 and that ordinary vacation no longer were enough. Shortly after, the authorities asked if he had defeated the creature alone, and Bay casually replied that it had not been difficult. The policeman then sent him back to school. While investigating the scene, on the way out, and murmured that even without his power already rivaled that of martial artists. Later, back to school, Zenu director announced proudly that their student had faced alone a faceless man. Ibe just clarified that it was just a little stronger. However, someone commented that only bare hands couldn't destroy a faceless man. The director then presented Ibe to the leader of the authorities' third team. The man sitting in front of them was the leader Lincoln Chan. When seeing Lincoln Chan's serious expression, Sengo warned not to scare Voy, saying he was the hope of the school. However, Lincoln Chan insisted that as an official, your duty was to understand what was going on. Knowing this, Ibai told that the faceless man had acted strangely. This immediately led the interest of Lincoln Taylor, who asked for more details, and Bay explained that normally, a faceless man moves alone, but that one had appeared in a crowded museum. When listening to this, Lincoln Chance got up and asked if there was anything else. Ibai clarified that the creature seemed to move through the hall, like I was looking for something. After hearing this, Lincoln Chun sighed and thanked for cooperation. When he extended the hand, Boy accepted the squeeze modestly, but soon widened his eyes. When feeling the force of Lincoln Chan's grip, he realized that it was probably being tested, then shook his hand back to test his strength as well. At the same time, Li Kain-chan watched Ibai's calm face and wondered if he hid a natural force or some secret. In quantum, Boy was impressed with the strength awakened by Li Kain-chan, far superior to any ordinary man. Their conversation was interrupted when a Lycanshan colleague rushed in. Looking for him, Lycanshan turned quickly and asked what was going on. The man replied that there were documents that demanded your immediate attention. Lycanshan then dropped Ibai's hand and asked him to leave. For now, Boy was a little irritated by that. After Ibai left, Lincoln-chan started analyzing the documents and was visibly surprised. Because of this, he couldn't stop warning the others what problems were about to arise. Later that night, Boy prepared a great feast for himself. While washing the food, thought a hot pot. It was one of the happiest moments of life, and especially when it included wild boar meat. He quickly put a piece in his mouth. His expression immediately ignited with enthusiasm. Meat was expensive for a reason. Suddenly, the system notified that your meal had increased your strength and defense. By discovering this, he kept eating animatedly, while earning more points. After that, decided to verify what he had obtained that day, and went to your room. When you opened your inventory, was surprised by what he saw. The little potion regained 100 lives in 5 minutes, while the great potion restored Lai. Instantly, he realized that it increased his stamina. As I didn't fully understand the effects, decided to use the little potion first to test it. Almost immediately, he felt a hot current running through his body. But your concentration was interrupted when you heard a noise outside. He approached the door, carefully, and peered through the opening, saw someone sitting at the dinner table, and without hesitation, kicked the person while demanding to know who he was. What was you doing there? But his fierce expression disappeared the next moment. Before the attack hit, he realized it was Lyle. At the same time, Lyle saw his attitude and was furious. She slapped him without hesitation and rebuked him harshly. After that, Voy said he didn't expect to see her there, and asked why she hadn't knocked on the door. Beale continued eating, and replying that he never locked the door. Besides, the beast's flesh was very tempting. So he asked where he had gotten that meat, and Well replied that I had bought it at the slaughterhouse. Leaving it aside, he asked why she had gone to visit him. Leal put the food on the table and got serious, said that your visit was because of the faceless man, for when he destroyed it, she saw a green light and disappeared. This made her suspect that the creature was not alone, but being controlled. His words did the eBay wonder if the faceless man had really been controlled. Leal confirmed his suspicion, mentioning the code of the Beasts 359 that allowed you to control other creatures. But soon realized that I was doing badly, and was paying attention, and was more interested in eating. So she yelled at him to pay attention, but Voy replied that everything was fine. It made Lyle ask what he meant by that. He said he understood her concern, but that the authorities should be investigating, and added that the authorities arrived quickly with their leader, which showed that the situation was not simple. Even so, he wondered why the faceless man would have risked appear in the museum. When listening to this, Leal seemed to remember something, and murmured that maybe it was related to that incident. And Well got confused and asked what she was talking about. Then Lyle explained that it was connected to the King Museum and its tragic story. Long time ago, a weak lizard lost his tail because of an accident when he crawled to a lake. Was shocked to see that his body had become negro como tempo. His body grew and the neighbors became his prey. He gained intelligence and power, and its black mist made all creatures tremble. After thousands of years of battles, he became the king of the holidays in that region. Even so, wanted to get even stronger and feel a much more powerful aura from a distance. Attracted by this presence, went to town, believing that devouring humans would make him stronger. He lit like the king of beasts. But then the Pope intervened. The king of the beasts has been defeated when the Pope created a formation and sealed his body over the city. Later, the city of King was built right over that old. After hearing this story, they wondered if the recent incident was linked. That ancient king of the beasts replied that there was still not enough information. But the presence of leaders showed that the situation was serious, and Bay got frustrated because it was already dealing with problems linked to that threat. Suddenly, Leal decided to leave, thanking him for clarifying your doubts, and also for the meal. She still reminded him to be careful in the future, and B decided to accompany her to the exit. The next day, at school, Professor Will said the faceless man was gone. So there was no reason to panic. However, the student asked if he really. They had captured 13 faceless men. What caught Will's attention? Will confirmed that faceless men were active, and advised everyone to stay home. And Will realized that the number of infected beasts was increasing, although it was still possible to control the situation. Even so, he knew he couldn't leave everything in the hands of the leaders and that he needed to get stronger. Suddenly, Will announced that the envoy, Jun, would visit the school the next day, and that everyone should behave well. The news made the girls excited, because they felt lucky to be able to see the envoy in person. And the boys were impressed that their school had received so much importance. Leal, however, found the situation serious, for the frog envoy was among the 3 strongest in China. When listening to this, Nabai was also quiet. At this time, our system interrupted and informed that he could change the lighting. When reaching level 10, he thought, reach level 10 would give you a great increase in power, but killing Kettle gave little experience. So I needed to find another method. Later, after the end of classes, he got a call. Some students made fun of the touch, old-fashioned from his cell phone, but Abai decided to ignore them and he attended them. Across the line, the killer's boss informed that he had obtained a rare beast, and immediately asked what creature it was. The boss replied that it was a 3-headed, an extremely rare creature. Abai quickly recalled that it was a high-level creature and asked where he had come from. The boss said that a friend had captured 3 of them, and that the male cost 800,000 while the female cost 500,000. And Bay was on time, and the boss reminded him to take the money when he went. Look for them. After turning off, and Bay got frustrated because there would still be 500,000 to go. Before you could think more about it, someone held your shoulder. He turned around and saw Lyle, who quickly asked, when he would stop being distracted. And Bei admitted he was out of money and asked if she had any work for him. Leal asked if he really needed, and he confirmed several times with his head. After thinking a little, she said he could help her with something, and who would transfer the payment. And he was surprised to find out that she was rich, since I had never recorded this before. Even so, guaranteed quickly that it would comply any task she asked for. He even suggested other things, a little embarrassed. And when he noticed his expression, and warned him, saying I had no interest in him, and quickly clarified that he was just talking about helping you with troubled people, and asked what she had understood. Bad quickly changed the subject and explained the task. He was supposed to accompany her throughout the next day, and Bei got confused by the order. The next day at the museum, 2 giant statues stood before them. Real took a while to make a sincere orientation. In Quantizo, Voy recalled that those were both most revered deities, Jehovah and Zeus. He also looked aloud and thought without them, the earth might have already become a paradise for the beasts. He began to wonder if she really had spent that much money just to get you into a prayer session. Leal then explained that the prayer classes increased the chances of up, as Bei always ignored them. She also thought that if he woke up, maybe you could share part of the luck and increase your own chances. And though, thought spending 500,000 just by a small increase in luck, it was something only the rich would do. While looking around, noticed a portrait of a girl praying with devotion. Then asked if to pray for a portrait really were. Ale explained that primordial gems were rare. That's why most people prayed to statues or reports, and Bei replied that he had no idea then were these primordial gems. So she scolded him for missing classes, then explained that the primordial gems were stones removed from the statues of the gods, and what statues made with these stones could bless the faithful. So, pray in front of the common statue or portraits could increase the chances of up. However, Bei didn't believe in gods, and just wanted to level up and get stronger. Even so, thought it strange that China had no gods in this world. Then asked Lyle if she had ever heard any legend about gods. She replied that China already was seen as a land abandoned by the gods, with no remaining divine legend. This answer only increased your doubts, since all civilization could have legends connected to your land. Then he speculated that the gods may have already existed, but your legends have been lost or erased. How he had come like a Chinese felt, who had a responsibility to discover the truth over that land. With this thought in mind, he apologized, saying he needed to take care of something. Leal realized that he no longer intended to pray, and reminded him that up was never an easy thing. In response, he assured that he would surpass even the gods, even if I didn't wake up. This bold statement left Lyle confused, and she concluded that he was crazy, and as Bei had already left the place, thinking it was time to strengthen even more your power. Later, no slaughterhouse. The cages were covered with talismans. Inside them was a 3-headed malfin. Level 21 female. Level 17. When the boss showed the creature to Bei, asked what he thought. Bei was impressed by their overwhelming presence, with combat power over 1,000, leaving your surprise aside. He asked about the third. The boss then explained that the last one would be delivered later by your friends. They discussed the payment, and promised to transfer the money, but also asked to meet the hunting team. The boss got confused and asked why he wanted to find the Bei replied that he might need of their help in the future to hunt beasts. He even swore he would kill beasts and forge an invincible heart, but the boss thought he was crazy. Even so, met and said the team would arrive later. And Quantizo and Bei carefully watched this. He knew he wouldn't survive with his current strength, so decided to wait for the hunting team and asked the boss to let him know when they arrive. Later, at home, Bei was taking a shower when he heard a big bang from the outside. He quickly approached the door, wondering if anyone had entered, as the city was going through times. Decided to verify. Before I could reach it, the door was kicked violently from the outside. With enormous force she was thrown inside. His Ultraman figure ended up falling to the ground. As he turned his attention to the door, the person started to steal the Godzilla doll. And behind the destroyed door, a girl with pink hair appeared. She was a member of the hunting team named Yan. Asked if he was looking for them. Angry and demanded to know who she was, calling you a pervert, and claimed that she had destroyed his door. But she recoiled, saying standing there with just a towel, or made it look like one. Then he realized that the towel had fallen. He quickly, the exception, and explained that it was all misunderstanding in the. However, she showed no interest in listening, said he had brought one last, and who would wait for him at the killer. Later, in a secret room, the boss introduced Bei to the hunting team. A man named Luan King Chan took a step forward and presented himself. Bei noticed immediately that he was a true hunter, for his presence carried an oppressive aura. After that, Luan King Chen introduced his daughter Ian to Ian Bei. When listening to this, Bei commented mentally she was a violent woman. Your thoughts were interrupted when Lu Qingshan said the boss Kim had said that he wanted to see them, and Well explained that he needed many fierce beasts and hoped they could work together. But Moon Qingshan asked why he needed so many, and Well replied that his technique required hitting beasts. When seeing this, Moon Qingshan and the others stayed in silence. Strangely, for a moment, Louis Chan said I was going maybe he was deceived, because I had never heard of such a method, and even said directly, I was just a pervert idiot with a distorted mind. When seeing this, Boy pointed at her and told her to be quiet. Leaving it aside, Louis Chen said these were his, and asked if I was going to kill one of them, and B admitted that yes, but said he didn't have enough strength and asked them to help weaken you. When seeing this, Lu Qingshan without hesitation then entered the cage and faced the three-headed female. With determined eyes, he struck with his bare hand. The immense force made the huge creature fall to the ground. However, the other Iranian advanced and let out a deafening roar. King Chan was momentarily surprised, hearing the lion's roar from the creature. The sound affected even King, and quickly covered his ears, but Ian was surprised to notice and kiss nearby. She heard standing firm, and began to wonder if he really hid some power. And Quantuiza, Luke on the ground jumped into the air. The architect immediately noticed and fixed his gaze on him, but Luca Inshen paid no attention and raised his hand, then descended with tremendous force over one of the architect's heads. The impact almost crushed the creature's head, and his body began to slowly fall to the ground. After confirming that she was on the verge of death, Luca Inshen told Voy that the rest depended on him. Well calmly entered the cage, without hesitation punched the weakened architect. However, the system warned that its power was too low to break through the creature's defense. Ian watched his mockery, saying he should stop, because he was not a warrior. But your words, stop it. When she realized what she was really doing, she saw Ibei attack the Iranian non-stop, pouring a rain of punches, then turned to the father and asked if he could also feel the power of I was increasing. Luan Qingshan stayed in, asking if the Abai force without awakening meant that the hereditary technique was real, and Quantuizo Abai continued, hitting the flake with punches amplified 10 times. He also refused to believe that he would not be able to break your defense, then gathered all his strength and delivered a final blow. When the beast exploded, he earned 7,000 points of experience and 3,500 gold. Your level also rose from 7 to 9. Or system congratulated on getting 21 attribute points. In addition, he gained the Lion Roar skill, consuming half of your stamina to triple your power in a single roar. Realizing it was a daily skill, he knew he would need to use it carefully in the future. While still enjoying the satisfaction of climbing the hole, Lu Qingshan said Abai had strength, but used it badly, and that with training, could improve by 20%. When saying goodbye, advised I was going to visit his blacksmith. What if I really wanted to get stronger? Bei signed with confidence, and declared that definitely would after. Ian spoke softly with his father about Voy. Lu Qingshan stopped suddenly, and confirmed that the Bei's aura had grown stronger after killing the next day, at home, Abai was busy, swinging his sword repeatedly in however, complained that dealing with the remnants of it was still troublesome. After all, he was huge, but at least his flesh allowed him to increase his attributes. For a while, their thoughts were interrupted by a Ling. When he answered, Leal immediately reprimanded him for missing classes. He then replied, saying he had something important to confess. At that time at school, Leal was surprised by his words, without hesitation, left in a hurry to find him, leaving others confused, regardless of people's eyes. She followed as fast as possible to Abei's house. Later, not Abei's house, the dining table, it was again filled with a pot, hot pot. Leal arrived while I was eating and asked for some. He replied that whoever was slow would be left with nothing. After finishing the meal, both were completely satisfied, and all sat down and commented, who never imagined he would take money just to buy it. He admitted it was true, but said he didn't expect her to come so fast, just to eat. She explained that monster meat improved physical condition. Then, missing class, because of it wasn't a big deal, and Bei started laughing when he heard it, and she demanded to know what was so delicate. He replied that only the class representative imagined, leading everyone to miss classes. In response, she punched him and made him apologize. Immediately, after a moment, she took a sip of drink and asked casually if he was following the news. She revealed that the authorities had issued a red alert, and that the envoy had already arrived to take command. Because of this, I feared the city of King was facing a major crisis. He agreed quickly, because I've also been feeling restless lately. I needed to level up fast. At this time, he saw her take something from the bag and asked what she was doing. She took her notebook on the table and announced that she would give him extra lessons, and Bei was completely surprised. Then he explained that he couldn't continue visiting places like museum without basic knowledge. His indignant protest echoed throughout the apartment. When you hear that, later that night, The extra classroom has finally ended, and Lyle remembered to keep mentioning that they would continue in the future, and B screamed in surprise. But she just looked at him with serious expression, and asked if there was any problem. In response, he immediately denied. With this paradise, she prepared to leave and said goodbye. However, Buddy reached her and offered to accompany her home. Saying I was restless hearing this, she blushed lightly, but replied that his house was only 3 streets away, about 10 minutes on foot. After confirming, he suggested that they be soon, because it would get more dangerous after it got dark. And the two followed down the street. As they walked, Leo felt that the situation was strangely embarrassing, so tried to ease the mood, commenting that the sunset was beautiful. As you have not received a reply, turned around and asked if he was listening and came out of his thoughts and asked what he had said. But she was ashamed and just told him to hurry. Although he agreed. If you look intensely, turned to the side, where he noticed a dark alley emitting a strange aura. Felt something unusual caught Lyle's attention. He suggested that she spend the night at his house, since there was enough room for 2. Surprised, she asked what he meant. While thinking about whether I should accept the offer, but before I could answer, a sudden clicking sound echoed through the air. And well, became tense when he heard a voice starting to tell. Realizing the danger, he pulled Lyle quickly back. And she asked what was going on. He explained that he felt an unusual presence in the alley, and was sure it was a monster. When seeing this, she asked if they should back off, but he replied that there were many others, front presences, which made the situation complicated. Suddenly, he stopped, noticing that several wooden figures already surrounded him. The wooden men kept counting, as they stared at them with funny smiles. Recognizing the situation, and well realized that they were completely surrounded, the creatures then declared that would punish for disobeying the rule of not moving. And he found that every wooden man was level 8, with the combat power of 100. After confirming this, he smiled, because it wouldn't be something problematic. Loyal still wondered if they really had a way to escape. He remained calm, and replied that there was no need to back down, because it would solve everything at once. Although she suspected he was just go bando, and B walked up close and told her to cover her ears, because I would use a skill. He activated the lion's roar, who had a chance to make his enemies deaf, and then destroy your internal organs. The resounding sound wave immediately made the wooden man retreat, staggering. In a few moments, their bodies were completely destroyed, scattered in pieces. Seeing all the shattered monsters, Leo was shocked when he realized I was had eliminated them with the only attack she couldn't avoid. Wonder when he had become so strong. In quanto Isa, Voy realized that the remains were not edible, but the experience gained was considerable. Even so, commented that they were useless, because in modern times there was no need for firewood. Suddenly, he noticed something shining nearby. It was a small sphere of red rock. And he asked Lyle if she knew that. She replied that if you had paid more attention in class, I would know that was the core of a wooden man. She explained that the core had a strong vitality, and it could be used as medicine for awakenings, becoming valuable. Hearing it could be sold. And well decided immediately to adopt all. Leo casually threw the ball at him, and said he wouldn't give up. He got attached quickly, and couldn't hide his satisfaction. However, someone suddenly appeared before them. An agent of law asked why they were away from home. Official called Hideon. Also warned that the city was especially dangerous at night, but his eyes fell on the wooden monsters destroyed, and he asked if they were responsible for that, and quickly explained that it was Ove who defeated us alone, and Dwayne was surprised to hear that, and wondered if Abai was some kind of monster. Abai noticed his expression, and decided to introduce himself. When hearing your name, John noticed that he was the monster that had defeated man, Faceless. He then praised his last name for producing such great talent, although others found it exaggerated. Moving forward, he presented himself as the captain of the 6th team, and said that Bay could become a level 9 powerhouse. And B replied that Dwayne was too kind, but admitted who was more interested in overcoming the gods. However, Leol knew that level 9 rivaled the 4 guardians, and began to wonder if the distance between them was increasing. After a brief conversation, and Dwayne said they should go home quickly because of the appearance of monsters. Later, at Lyle's house, she thanked Foy and warned him that the king of monsters, I was looking for the lizard's body. Potty calmly replied that there was always a solution. She just thanked again and closed the door with unexpected strength. He just stood there, asking if he had done anything to offend her. Without him creating, Leo wondered with concern whether I could keep up with him. Later, Mo slaughterhouse and well killed the other. Young saw that and commented that he had not yet seen nothing impressive in it, and B ignored, knowing that even after defeating 2 types of beasts, it was still a long way from leveling up. Then asked about the level plus they had captured. When seeing this, Lu Qingchen made a gesture for him to follow him, then lifted despite the cage cover. Thus it was revealed that King Harold level 20, with combat power of 1900, was there, and in saw by a surprise expression, and said it wasn't something he could face. Luca Enchanta added to me that even though King Harold was on the brink of death, Abai still might not get hurt. Encouraged by the words of the father, Ian told Abai he was just a weakling, and that he should adopt, but Voi ignored, and took out his knife. Dan advanced and tried to strike however the blade broke extremely when hitting the creature. When seeing this, Ian started laughing, thinking it was pure ignorance. Yet, Ian remained calm, because I had already realized the problem. Without the heavenly sword, he couldn't break through King Harold's defense. However, when you feel the creature's breath, closed his eyes and got hurt. At that moment, the rhythm of the architect's breathing was clear to him. When one of the heads showed a small glitch in his breathing, he gathered 10 times his strength, then held the broken knife, and directly attacked the head. Enraged, Ian was shocked by that, whilst Luan Qingchen didn't expect I would. Mastered the muscle impact breathing technique. Right after our system notified that he had won 15,000 experience points and achieved level 10. He also got battle armor. Then, the system asked about lighting change, and Abai decided he would make his fortune with it. After that, Lua Qingchen elogied Voi for having managed to master the breath from the impact. Muscular Voi casually replied that he was a genius, since he could not reveal the existence of the system. Leaving it aside, he called the boss. The boss immediately asked the reason for the call, but before I went to answer, the system notified that the architect's armor had been delivered, so he just said he would transfer the payment, and left in a hurry. His sudden departure left the loot swarm and the others completely confused. Even Soen very bad could contain his excitement when trying out the armor. Later, at home, was satisfied with the defensive armor and the power to fly, so he declared that for now, even the heavenly sword would have a hard time. Leaving it aside, he wondered what was the purpose of this village foundation token that he had obtained. Knowing they had gotten it in the treasure chest of the boss, he took it and examined it, concluded that perhaps it was something important to build your influence in the future. However, his priority at that time was himself, as it had finally reached level 10. Quickly invoked the system to boot the class change. A bright light enveloped your whole body when the process started. Looking at the radiant glow around you, he felt a sense of admiration. The system first introduced the wizard class, a long-range tribe that used powerful magic. When hearing about the long-range class, he immediately became interested. Then, the warrior class emerged, a combat role full of battle intention. The moment I was going, he saw, a strange feeling was felt. Finally, the system introduced the Buddhist monk, a path of compassion against evil. After showing the 3 options, the system asked him to make a choice. After thinking carefully, Abe raised his hand towards the selection interface. When your finger touched the screen, the system confirmed its decision to change class to warrior. After the class change, your muscles and bones got stronger. An intense pain ran through your body, forcing you to saw your teeth. Then a golden light enveloped him and lightning fell on his body. After transformation, he said the pain was brutal, but the power obtained made it all. Later, after taking a shower, he discovered that his fighting power had risen to 900, and your strength for 62, with its power tripling, felt that defeating King Harold would be easy. When putting the drink aside, realized that ordinary monsters wouldn't be enough, and that I would need to go to nature, wild to grow fast. At this time, the system sent a notification, the activation of its main mission. The main mission required 10 million people, recognized their ability to, while the Greek mission demanded that you kill 20 beasts above level 10. After analyzing the objectives, concluded that the system was guiding into the wild. With that in mind, decided to face the dangers of that place. The next day, he arrived in Kid City Adventurers Guild. The huge building impressed, especially as it is the center of nature's missions. Inside the reception hall there were crowds gathered. He even heard someone looking for third-rate warriors to hunt the Tiger King. In addition, heard of a mission to collect gallbladder. All that hustle and bustle reminded me of the old game guilds. He also found that most members of the guild were awake and stole Alta status. Suddenly, a woman approached him and asked if he needed help. The woman named Minuchi commented that helping others, it was her greatest joy. However, he replied that he was just looking an ant's princess. I heard him call her that. She was immediately angry, confused. He thought calling someone an ant was still acceptable for a second-year championship. Even so, she rebuked him for his lack of respect and said he was in serious trouble. At this time, a familiar voice kept her name and asked what he was doing there. When U-turn saw that it was Ian and Luan King Chan, Ian even waved at him. And well then shook Luan King Chan's hand and said it was good to see Lo. However, Luan King Chan took his hand away and said that was enough. Then turned to Shi and asked her to give him some consideration and leave the matter there. She was visibly surprised by the moon's intervention. King Chan, even so, she put the matter aside and told Abi he's smarter. After she left, Abi asked the moon Chan if everyone in the guild was that weird. Luke and Chan confirmed and said that the fights, in nature, kept people's nerves always tense. Leaving it aside, asked what I was doing there. Abi replied that he intended to go to nature, while to experience it for yourself. Yank made fun of him, saying he would be devoured in less than an hour. When seeing this, Abi also made fun of her, saying she wasn't much better. She then challenged with her sword, and he accepted, which resulted in a heated discussion. Luca and Shen was furious with the behavior of the two, while some nearby adventurers rooted for the fight. Without wasting time, he the two away from there. Later, inside a VIP room, Abi claimed that Moon King Chan had been too hard hitting him. However, Lua King Chan warned that, with so many specialists hiding there, causing conflicts was an attitude. After realizing he was right, and Vei finally calmed down, Lu King Chan then went on to explain that, although hunting monsters from that experience, the wild nature was really dangerous. When listening to this, Bei got even more excited and asked for more details. Seeing your enthusiasm, Luan King Chan finally agreed to explain. He said the outside world was dangerous, especially because of the 4 danger zones, and Bei had never heard of them. Then Luan King Chan explained that to the east stood the mountain of the fierce tiger, ruled by the golden-winged Tiger King. To the west stood the muddy swamp rule by the 2-headed dragon. To the south stretched the Sea of Flowers, about the flower demon's domain. And 300 miles away stood the low hill, ruled by the Ghost King. These were the 4 zones that surrounded the city of King, with countless dangers hidden beyond them. However, the basic attention just came back to the experience that I could win in these places. Lu King Chan noticed his animated expression and got confused by it. Even so, said fight scattered beasts was enough, and without having to go too far, it made sure he knew what he was doing, but needed to leave quickly. Later, on the King City defensive wall, a guard prevented from entering the restricted zone. The soldier asked if he had a permit, and because he was trying to go into hiding, without knowing how to answer, and Bei pointed to the sky and shouted that there were monsters, players. The soldier immediately turned to look, but saw nothing. When she turned around again and kissed had disappeared. The soldier was confused about, because someone would willingly seek danger. Later, in the city by day, mouse monsters were running among the ruins. Seeing that, Bei realized that a mouse from level 5 already proved that the outside was practically a desert. He then took his gun, the Spear of Wind, and who possessed 350 of attacking power, after team released in the air and decided to test his strength on a giant mouse. With the only blow he killed instantly, gained 3 experience points, though he mocked the little bounty. Yet, that was the monster hunter's lie that he always wanted. While I was there, the mice around began to stir. He quickly noticed the movement and turned around towards the Iridian. A mouse order came out of a nearby building. One of them let out a horrible scream as a sign, and the whole horde advanced at once. Even so, and a beard remained calm and decided to test his new technique. When the mice approached, he took his spear and activated your warrior skill, the Spear of Wind, and was surrounded by a powerful power, spiritual. The mice turned on for a moment when you feel the overwhelming force, but their attacks the entire area and swallowed the garden. When the dust went down, Juba was surrounded by bodies while continuously receiving experience points. At dusk in the forest, Ibi lit a fire and began to roast the mice he had hunted. When they were ready, he started eating the meat without hesitation, one after the other, ate until he satisfied himself and threw the bones aside. When you arrived, commented that fresh monster meat was soft. However, his expression soon got serious. He felt a powerful presence approaching and turned quickly to check who he was. To your surprise, a tiger with wings, golden, advances directly towards you. He quickly his spear and jumped into the air, positioning himself behind the creature. Then, lightning cut through the forest as your attack went down. After defeat, mocked him in his low fighting power, but was curious about the taste of the meat. He also wondered what kind of tiger that was, since these beasts rarely live together. Before I could finish thinking, realized that more tigers had appeared. One of them advanced, snarling with angry red eyes, and Bai was shocked to see that, and without wasting time, turned around and started to eat. Even so, the golden-winged tigers kept. He realized that there was something strange about their cooperation, understood that it would be achieved if it continued, so decided to use his skill. He stopped running and suddenly activated his power, His battle armor appeared on his body, and the bright light blinded the tigers for a moment. But this meant the armor allowed him to fly, saving from being surrounded. Even so, he finally admitted that nature, wild, was really dangerous, and wondered why the tigers were so excited to chase him. But then he declared that now it was his turn. Then, Edger Dragon and Phoenix Blow, a huge explosion of power, crossed the field and hit the tigers, one after the other. They fell to the ground, while system notifications appeared continuously. And he realized that every tiger gave him 2,000 experience points, and thought another dozen. It would be enough to level up. However, suddenly a dizziness struck him, and his vision began to blur while trying to stay upright. Realized that the dragon and Phoenix Blow consumed too much energy to be used constantly. He also admitted that he still had no experience sufficient and needed to get his mana back. At the same time, realized that the tigers were using attack and retreat techniques, which showed that they were smart. Later, in the depths of the forest, a servant walked calmly, when a tiger with golden wings appeared and jumped on him. At this exact moment, Abe's spear fired forward. She went through the tiger's body and held him against a large cloud. After that, Abe approached the servant's body, just to find out the bait was already dead. It made the situation even more complicated for him. Later, near a cliff, found several golden-winged tigers gathered, and he admitted that the beasts were really cunning. Although only a few more deaths were enough to do it. Level up. Thinking about it, decided to go ahead and look for other monsters. Fierce. After some time, finally found a lonely tiger and decided to use it to level up. Imagining the experience you would gain, he flew towards him with enthusiasm. However, upon arrival, realized that the situation was not what he imagined. Before him was the Tiger King, level 25. At that moment, the huge beast woke up slowly and rose in all his height, and he couldn't believe the size of the creature. That was bigger than a whale, but the look of the tiger fixed directly on him, and I was going to start wondering, nervously, if he had already been admitted. The Tiger King advanced around, threw a menacing aura, and gathered energy in his mouth, before firing a mighty sphere at him. Ad was going quickly, created a barrier to try to block the attack, but the force broke through the defense and put it away. The Tiger King just watched coldly, with a look full of. Near there, some servants were calmly passing by when they saw I was going to fall from the sky, and stood still, confused. Abai managed to get up, and admitted that the Tiger King's power was frightening. Before you could recover, another noise echoed through the forest. As I looked around, he saw another order of beasts running towards him. Anxiety dominated, for he feared that his luck was over, and that it would be trampled. Even so, he quickly his spear, and saw action, a vertical blow, followed by a horizontal cut against the beasts. The overwhelming force of your attacks away the enemies and ended the chaos. After defeat, Lus gained 1,000 experience points and a little bold. In addition, War System reported that he had reached level 11. When listening to this, he stuck his spear into the ground and fell sitting on relief, but admitted that there were too many bulls. This led to the suspicion that there was some kind of agreement between the government and the King of Monsters. As it lengthened, also thought about the dangers of the world and decided to reach level 12 before returning, and then tied the bodies of nourishing beasts and wondered if your inventory would be able to store that. He recognized that he needed to improve your combat skills, since he had difficulty even against weaker enemies. But before I continue thinking, heard voices coming from the forest and sighted a distant group of bulls. Getting curious, at that moment, Yan and his team were surrounded by the herd. They were already exhausted because of previous battles. Suddenly, one of the bulls advanced, and Yan raised the sword in haste and to block the attack. At the same time, asked his father to end the fight soon. Not far away, then the horned bull king had a severed ear. Injury caused by Luan King-chan. When listening to the daughter's voice, Luan King-chan told her to hold on a little longer while finishing the monster. But the bull king was still far from being defeated. Enjoying Luke's moment of enchant, he turned around and tried to run away. Liu King-chan yelled at him to stop, but realized that a battle ended could condemn them all. And Quan Tuizo Yang's sword was snatched from her hand and thrown across the floor. His arm was also hurt when he failed to defend himself. When he opened his eyes with effort, saw the angry bull running straight towards him. Luan King-chan yelled at her to move, but I knew maybe it was too late. Yang was completely exhausted and only managed to apologize. Suddenly, the bull before her was hit by. When the creature fell, and Abe appeared and made fun of Yang for not being able to handle it. When listening to your voice, she was surprised, and the captain of perverted being. He immediately replied that he was not perverted and asked how they had ended up surrounded. Before she replied, Mu King-chan suddenly appeared. He explained that he wanted to forge a better weapon for Yan. But a mistake of yours had cost you dearly, and Baya was surprised to see that Moon King-chan had really made a mistake. But suddenly, Molumen was pointed at ear. Continues, Liu King-chan warned to watch the words. And I was going to quickly apologize. In Quan Tuizo, the other two men called Liu King-chan. saying they wouldn't last for long. Lu Kenshan turned his attention to the Bull King, and now I was too intimidated to shoot. Yet, over time, more bulls kept coming, and Aang suggested that they fight to make way, but Lu Kenshan replied that with so many enemies, I couldn't eliminate all. Even so, Ian insisted that he didn't care, and even said he wanted to eat roast beef. Lu Kenshan just apologized, and admitted that his resistance was already running out, and well then asked him to hold on for 3 seconds. Lu Kenshan but got confused by the plan, and well moved immediately, saying there was no time to explain. He who rebuked, but still, advanced and used Solomon to block the approaching bulls. While fighting, warned you to use that skill, it would drain your energy and let their lives in Abay's hands. Faye replied that he should not worry, for he had not yet lived long enough to die, so decided to capture the Bull King to stop the others. He ran quickly to the monster's back, and threw a punch with 10 times his normal strength. The impact was so powerful that it crushed the head of the Bull King against the ground. Yan and Lu Kenshan were shocked to see that show of strength. So Abei didn't stop and activated its dragon and phoenix blow. The Bull King felt overwhelming pressure when the figures of the dragon and the phoenix descended on him. He tried to run away but was pursued relentlessly. In an instant, the dragon and the phoenix merged and hit the Bull King in full force. The creature's body fell lifeless to the ground, and well then he declared that it was all over. After the beheading of the Bull King, the other bulls fled in a panic. The bald man pulls his other neck. That ran to him. The two hugged and blamed each other for having survived. Luan Quinta also felt shame, and even suggested abandoning everything. Atia Yan agreed with. Suddenly, Luan Quinta saw Iba and waving. He replied that he owed you this help, but Ibi said he didn't need. Since they knew each other well, irritated by his tea, Luan Qinchan almost wanted to teach you a lesson, but Ibi asked for the monster's body, saying it would make you stronger. Luan Qinchan asked him to wait a moment, and came and asked if there was anything else. So Lu Kenshan said the raw power of well, it had no, and guided, looking for a blacksmith in the Moon Mountain town. There he learned the method that Lu Kenshan used to control the force correctly, and Bei agreed and said he would definitely, and then told him to switch of clothing before being ashamed, and he obeyed. Later, in Louisville Mountain town, Bei arrived at a store, realizing that it was Luan Qinchan's blacksmith shop. I knew I was in the right place. Suddenly, Gian, saying you thought he couldn't find the place. She noticed your expression and asked if he was surprised with your combat suit. Then, proudly presented its weapons, saying they weren't bad, and B commented that, considering Lu Kenshan's skill, that was natural, and asked why he was showing off. Question with the answer. She asked if he wanted to fight, and Bei accepted without fear, and she declared that he was doomed. At this time, Luan Qinchan entered furious and asked, because they always fought, even slapping the heads of the two, ordered them to behave. Both said it wasn't guilt of them, and started pointing at each other. O Qinchan, so he sent the two to get ready, and announced that he would forge a new weapon for Yan. Soon after he started to demonstrate a special method of control and power, and asked them to watch carefully. While trying, raise the hammer towards the horn. He remembered I was going to pay close attention, then struck the horn with immense force. Voi was impressed by realizing that such a short movement had an overwhelming power. He understood that technique was extraordinary and decided to memorize it carefully. At this time, our system notified that he had learned the manipulation of power, the Lu Kenshan, and well then reached the basic domain and finally managed to control his strength. Surprised, he wondered if it would be necessary to reach 1,000 points before painting. He realized he was staring, and asked if he had learned, and well answered with confidence that yes, saying he was a genius. His arrogance made her furious, and she felt like punching him. Later that night, the sound of metal being struck echoed in the blacksmith shop, Luke filling a final blow on the horn with enormous strength. Not long after, the sword has finally been forged. Yun was happy, seeing that your heavenly bull sword was ready, but a dark hour appeared around the gun. When she tried to catch the moon that on the ground, noticed and warned to be careful. The sword began to move by itself. He avoided in the air, and turned towards Yan, and shot at her. She deflected quickly, but the blade still grazed her cheek while, or passed. Suddenly, the sword broke in two, and fell to the ground with a loud noise. After seeing this, Ibai asked what had happened. Lu Kenshan explained that the weapon resisted because of the remaining will that he failed to eliminate. Then turned to Yan, and apologized for destroying her weapon. But she said she didn't care and stated who could enter the martial arts institute, even without her. Lu Kenshan also apologized to Ibai, for your plan of teaching it correctly had not worked. But Ibai replied that he had no problem, for he had already learned. Moon Qinchan tried to keep explaining, but stopped to hear that. Surprised, asked if he had really mastered the technique. I would quickly throw a hammer and a sword that were around and asked the Moon Qinchan to check if any glitches in his technique existed. After saying this, put the sword in place and forgot. When the hammer went down on the blade, The sword was cleanly cut into 4 pieces. Seeing that, Luan Qingchuan realized that Abei's strength control had completely changed. He had understood the technique in just one attempt. Something Luan Qingchuan considered absurdly impressive. And Guan Izzo boy offered Yang to test his weapon. She immediately asked if he would give her the spear, but I was going, said the spear didn't match her temper. Instead, he drew the heavenly edge sword, who had more than 60 strength. He explained that the weapon was a family treasure, and she accepted lively. It became curious about the origin of the sword, and B said he could summon items from a distance. She then left, saying they would depend on him for supplies. More, eBay decided not to reveal the existence of its system. Later, they opened the store and put Yang in front of a training doll. With a new sword in hand, she closed her eyes and pushed all her strength, while Lu Qinchan and Ibei watched. When he opened his eyes again, were full of determination. She stepped forward and slammed the log in front of her, completely cutting into 2 parts. Alvarez couldn't help it. He impressed by how sharp her sword was. Lu Qinchan also agreed that the cut had been perfect, worthy of a precious weapon. Ibei slapped Lu Qinchan and said he was being too polite. Again, Boy thought it really was worth it. Since he had learned the ability to control of strength, Luke Chen recognized Ibei's bold talent. Even though I'm a little reckless, leaving it aside, Ibei said I would come home, since the subject of the weapon was pending, but Lu Qinchan asked him to wait a moment. What he did was going to wonder if there was anything else. Lu Qinchan then asked if he had ever considered enter the Arts Institute. Marshall, the next day, back to town Manuel walked tired after 2 days without sleep. While walking, thought about the institute's training system and the assessment that would take place the next day. But while I was distracted, a book flew through the air and hit his face directly. Leal appeared soon after, and that, rebuked for not responding and for missing classes, she too asked if he had thought, in her position as class monitor, and very quickly returned her notebook and said it was in nature, in a place without signal. Leal was in doubt whether I could survive alone in the wild. He confidently replied that yes, even claimed that he had killed many monsters. She completely ignored her arrogance. That Ibei asked if she wanted to prove the ingredients he had brought. When she agreed, asked what he would prepare, a car passed at high speed towards them. Ibei realized the danger immediately and pulled the Lyle to the side to avoid impact. After escaping, the driver yelled at them, but Ibei noticed something soft on his chest. When he looked down, realized that he had played on Lyle's chest. Leo's face turned red with anger, and she screamed, calling you an idiot. Later, at home, the table was again full of hot food, and Bai just smiled, with the light mark of a hand still stamped on the face. Hugh remained clearly irritated, so he tried to apologize, offering rare nature meat. Even so, she said that only meat wouldn't be enough to earn your forgiveness, and Bai accepted that. But when he finally tasted the meat, she was silent for a moment. The taste was rich and smooth. Still said it was just courtesy anyway. Continued eating while Abby encouraged her to get more. After that, he said that he might not attend school anymore so regularly. Leal was surprised and asked why. He explained that he intended to apply to the Art Institute. Marshall, she finally admitted that his talent was fit to become an artist. Marshall, even so, advised him to try to awaken his abilities correctly, instead of giving up too early. After the meal, she said she could organize her exit from school, but insisted that he attend classes when he can. Hey. When she was about to walk out the door, Ibei asked you to wait a moment. Leal turned quickly, asking why he had called. But all I heard was I was saying thank you. Irritated with that, she called him an idiot. Ibei was confused by her reaction. Leal then slammed the door hard and walked away, leaving the standstill without understanding what he had said wrong. In the end, he thought girls were complicated and decided to rest before visiting the institute the next day. The next morning from the Martial Arts Institute, many candidates were already gathered. Between them was Yan, who quietly drank a corner. Ibei wrote it down immediately and greeted her, asking where Luke was in Chan. Yan replied that his father had gone to inspect the place and asked her to wait for Voy. Voy recognized Luke's consideration in Chan and asked how he could participate in the test. Yan explained that he needed to register at reception and wait for them to call your name. Ibei observed the large number of participants and asked how the evaluation worked. She explained that the test rated strength, speed, and combat. When seeing this, Voy told her not to be eliminated. Ian slammed the glass onto the irritated table and approached him. Ibei asked because she was smiling so strangely. Ian said the sword he had given gave him confidence, and Bei didn't quite understand what she meant. At this time, Ian attended to the test room. Before leaving, she told Ian, pay attention and observe the test well, especially what really them. No file. Inside the exam room, Ian started his test. She entered the arena and came face to face with the huge stone Sid. The creature immediately advanced against it, anticipating movements. Yan held the sword tight, and with a quick and precise blow, cut the golem in half. Spectators were shocked by the ease with which she defeated. The referee then confirmed that the golem was incapacitated and declared, Yan approved. She walked back towards her father, Luan Kane. Shan commented that just disable the golem, it was enough. At this time, Boy appeared and praised Ian for the fight. She ignored the compliment and asked how he had gone at the stage to eliminate, instead of answering directly. The boy asked that. She guessed irritated by his burning look. Ian threatened to attack him with the sword. Sometime later, Bay's name was finally called. He calmly entered the arena and asked the fight to start, admitting that I had never faced an alarm claw. When seeing this, Young sat there and quickly looked at his father. But Luke and Chen said there was no cause for concern, because IB was clearly hiding more strength. Right after the referee started the test, Bay's opponent asked him to be careful. The arena floor began to shake. When the opponent has activated his skill, raised stones in the air, the molecules began to spin around him, forming a tornado. The mighty wind spread across the arena, forcing even spectators to protect themselves. When the storm subsided, all opened their eyes shocked when seeing a gigantic ship in front of a bay. Many began to wonder if the Institute I was aiming specifically in it. The awakening then said your control over Gaia had reached the limit, and hoped Abai could prove his strength. In Quantum the referee analyzed Abai's data, including the fact that he defeated a faceless man. He rated Abai's strength as level 2 and wondered if that was fruit of a natural talent. In Quantum Boy remained calm when the huge golem advanced and launched a quick attack. He narrowly deflected the crushing punch. Thinking about the blessing of Gaia concluded that the abilities of the Awake were difficult to face. However, while I thought about it, didn't realize the golem had firmly. Sighs of shock echoed through the arena when the golem began to move with surprising agility. Opponent mocked Bay's claim to be a genius, but stopped when he noticed something strange. Bay's body began to release an enormous force, tearing your clothes. With the explosion of power, he destroyed the hand of the golem that held him. When seeing this, the referee noticed that Bay's power was increasing, and that he hit even more strength. The golem roared in pain as his arm shattered, but the broken stones began to levitate, and soon reconnected to the creature's body. The alarm clock calmly explained that the regeneration capacity of the golem nullified Ibay's strategy. Ibay landed near gun stand. Watching the weapons, realized that not even 10 times his strength had been enough to defeat the golem. Without hesitating more, he took a spear and advanced again. The golem prepared another devastating attack and came, deflected quickly, and let the blow hit the ground, taking advantage of the opening by the outstretched arm of the golem. Perfect time. He activated the blow, dragon and phoenix. The public was shocked when seeing the figures of a dragon and a phoenix appeared in the air. The next moment, the golem was cut in half by power. Ibai crusher after to completely destroy the enemy. Ibai asked the referee if he had passed the test. In a room full of empty bottles, a man was sitting quietly, with a bottle in hand. After finishing drinking, he asked for one more. This man was none other than Shane, the head of the headquarters of the Martial Arts Institute. The secretary came in and said firmly that he couldn't keep drinking. But Sheen insisted that as a 5th-class warrior, I wouldn't get drunk so easily. In response, she put a thick pile of documents on the table. Said he understood the lack of talent at the institute, and that for this, those reports were essential. She still approached, leaving Shane with no room to discuss. Like this, Lily took the documents and began to read, visibly shocked by the content. Back to the institute, Bay received the 2nd-class warrior emblem. He kept playing with the medal, and boasted of having passed without much effort. His convinced expression made Young saw his fists, because he felt like getting it right. In Quantum was out. Lua King Chan calmly stated that the strength of Bay was already equivalent to him. When listening to this, and Bay got a little ashamed. Suddenly, asked if his phone was ringing, and quickly answered. However, ended up being reprimanded by Lyle for missing classes all day. He started to explain his situation, while Young watched everything in silence behind. His then turned to his father and asked softly if he came. It was really that strong. Lucanshin tried to comfort her, saying wonders always appeared. Before I could finish, Yan raised his sword and declared that one day would overtake and go well again. The next day, on Tiger Mountain, several tigers were devouring the body of a servant when a strange sound interrupted them. The next moment the huge lightning struck them, and well appeared and realized that control and technique were more important than pure strength. System notification, informing that he had reached level 13, made him smile with pride. But that smile soon disappeared. Several howls echoed behind him. When looking up, saw a large group of tigers, running towards you. He held the spear, and thrust them head-on. But their number was overwhelming. Also found it strange that they didn't back down, even after suffering losses. When one of them approached and Bay noticed something, he wasn't attacking recklessly. I was just buying time. At that moment the winged tiger king had arrived. A fierce roar echoed through the forest. Impossible to ignore even the distance. Ibe realized that the tiger king was furious for the losses, and that everything had been a trap. Before I could react better, the tiger king spread its wings and flew straight towards you. And he knew well that he still wasn't an outcast for him and needed to pull him back immediately. Activated his armor and movement technique to escape, but realized that the speed of the Rete, it was such that persecution was inevitable. At this time, the Rete triggered a shock wave, compressed by mouth, and was caught by surprise and failed to dodge completely. The attack hit your side and intense pain ran through your body. He still managed to narrowly escape, but the explosion passed, scraping before reaching the mountain. When looking at the impact, realized that the previous fight didn't even had shown all the power destructive of that attack. Realizing I couldn't face it, he struggled to keep calm and analyze the surrounding environment. After thinking for a moment, the plan came up in your mind. He changed direction and flew towards a swamp, distant, then provoked the Tiger King, pointing to him and challenging to pursue him. The Tiger King was confused by that attitude, but the provocation sweated like an insult. Furious advanced behind him, seeing that he had fallen into the trap and quickly descended towards the scepter, yet the last second, directly into the muddy waters. The tiger stopped in the air, suspicious of unknown terrain. Shortly after, bubbles began to rise on the surface of the swamp. The water began to stir violently, until the two-headed dragon, the drawing of the muddy swamp, arose. The air between the two creatures became tense, and Quantum Isoba came out on the other side of the swamp and fleeing the body mud. He knew the dragon never would allow another ruler in his territory. After a great potion of life and drank it all at once, the effect was immediate, and his wounded arm healed quickly. Then, raise your eyes to the sky and watch the dragon and the Tiger King fighting fiercely. Even though they were anxious at that moment, Ibe intended to make the Retiger pay for having deceived him. Later, inside the forest, a group of winged tigers devoured the remains of servants. They were busy tearing the flesh when one of them noticed something strange. But it was too late. A guy walked through the trees, followed by a violent explosion that swallowed them up. When the dust went down, Ibai was in front of them, casually calling them kittens. As he gained experience with the defeated beasts, one of the tigers looked him in shock, looking at the silhouette of the dragon that seemed to rise behind him, and B calmly commented that it had been a long time since their last meeting. Fear spread among the remaining tigers, and immediately tried to flee. Seeing this, Ives warned me not to even think of escaping before him. He then dealt a powerful blow. The attack tore through the forest and opened a huge path. Shortly after, it was full of corpses. While the system gives you rewards, and murmured that 199 tigers had already paid the price, but wanted one more to close the number. As if he had heard the sound of a falling tree echoed nearby, and Bay turned his head and saw that the 100th enemy had arrived. Behind him was a level 20 general tiger, guardian of the clan, and Bay commented that the beast no longer had any duty after the fall of your clan. Even so, the general tiger roared and walked forward without hesitation, and Bay jumped slightly to the side, dodging the attack and taking the creature by surprise. Taking advantage of the opening, turned the spear decisively. The blade shone, and with the only blow clean, he beheaded the general tiger, thus declared that his 100th death had finally assumed the death that felt it with the old tiger. Suddenly, the system congratulated him on completing the hidden mission, Enemy of the Tiger Clan, granting exclusive ability, Tiger Jump. With this new technique in hand, he believed the final hit with the Tiger King was close. Leaving it aside, he looked at the scattered bodies of the tigers and thought of its value. Realizing that he was no longer poor, got excited. Sometime later, the Tiger King has returned, carrying the heads of two-headed dragons. But the moment he looked at the ground, your eyes turned red like blood. Before him were the lifeless bodies of his entire clan. A deafening roar and rabbit through the forest. The Retiger's fury was so intense that even different people started to wonder who had provoked him like that. Panic spread and everyone started to flee. Right after, the Retiger opened its mouth and fired a devastating attack. The explosion hit the surrounding mountains and made parts of them fall apart. Later that night, Ibai thought of his new wealth and decided to buy 2 cell phones. When passing by, the killer saw the lights on and wondered why Boss Kim was still working so late. He decided to enter and announce, excited that there were goods to sell, but instead of a friendly reception, a knife flew towards you, and B instantly reacted and ducked down to deflect. A little girl took a step forward and demanded to know who he was and why he had entered. Instead of answering, Voy demanded in, but she coldly refused. He then said that mischief needed to sublime. But suddenly, it froze. A dark expression took over the environment. Only then did he realize that there were several specialists present, and that everyone looked hostile. At this time, Him finally showed up and recognized Bay. Almost immediately the pressure disappeared. making Ibe confused. Kim explained that the girl was his naughty daughter Yuna. After listening to father's relationship with Ibe, Yuna backed down and Ibe decided to let her go. Kim apologized for her behavior and asked what I brought there so late. Ibe replied that he had 30 bodies of tigers, golden wings. Kim was surprised. It, due to familiarity between them, fixed the price at 320,000 each. And Bei accepted immediately and thanked, but Kim said he didn't need formalities. Later, while checking your car, and B if you wondered if Kim was hiding any secrets, because I didn't even ask a question. The experts gathered also caught your attention, but Kim's description made him not insist. Finally decided to leave, thinking Kim didn't look like a bad person. And so inside the slaughterhouse, Kim asked to the specialists if they had confirmed everything. One of them replied yes, but explained that the body of the king of monsters had become a great attraction to other beasts. After hearing this, who ordered them to contain the situation. He commented on himself that the awakened ones were really frequent. The next day, outside Bay apartment, Sheen arrived accompanied by another man. The man asked if he was sure that was the place. Sheen calmly confirmed and said he had already registered all the details about Bay. It was all investigated. Inside the apartment, the dining table was again full of food and well talked. While inviting Lyle to sit down and eat, or system notified that the NTC operating function had been activated, but he was irritated that she activated late, since his curiosity about who had already passed it. He saw this as a valuable support skill, if used wisely. Soon he saw someone knock on the door and forgot that Lyle had arrived. Then opened it up and casually commented on how fast it. However, his expression froze at the sight of two unknown men. Then immediately asked who they were. Sheen called him by name and praised his unusual face. What he did was going to question how he knew him. Sheen explained that they had been watching him since your martial arts demonstration, and who were representatives of the institute. The man next to Sheen smelled the tiger dishes, approached, and commented that such ingredients were rare, and Bei was surprised, and the man asked if he had killed all those tigers, and Bei confirmed and asked them to go. But Shane just told him to be patient. What did you do? And questioned the reason for the visit. Before I could react, felt your body move against its own will. An invisible force forced him to sit on a chair. Bump it. He realized that man's power didn't give him the chance. He react. Moments later, the two had already cleaned the empty bowls, even though the meal was meant for him and Lyle. Sheen then praised the dishes and commented that I would prosper. Opening a restaurant. Took advantage of the situation. Void demanded $1 million as payment for the meal, and claimed that they had entered and eaten without asking permission. Realizing this, Sheen formally filed with this. The head of the district hall of John, when hearing the title of Wes, Voy realized he was someone extraordinary. He then asked what the two wanted there, was praised by his performance, and offered to make it here at the institute. Shane commented with envy. The director had never done anything like this before. However, Ibai just thanked and insisted that he wanted to participate in the awakening ceremony. In response, Ois pointed out that he already knew that the awakening value of by era 0 was expression gradually got serious, as he'd his power, and asked if I was going. Ignored the strength of a martial artist. At that moment, Voy felt an overwhelming aura pressing. Even so, when looking at Weiss, remembered his second chance at life, and decided he wouldn't surrender. Was waited for your response, and B said that success or awakening would not abandon the path of a martial artist. Was lightly brandished his eyebrows with the response, but kept insisting that if he didn't try, couldn't be considered really strong. Unexpectedly, Jen started clapping, and broke her attention, commenting that Ibe's calm about the director's aura was rare. Was also commented that the mental state, exceptional Ibe, or made it really intriguing. By passing it, promised not to interfere with his choice, and said the doors of the institute would remain open to him. Before leaving, also promised to send some guidance on the day X, but warned that Bei should study with dedication, or I would be personally disappointed. Outside, Shane commented that the X was being recorded, as he rarely gave advice. The X replied that Shensha's talent had reached the limit in 5th place, but Ibai had shown him a glimmer of hope. In Stockholm, he wished that one day I would surpass that man. In Quantum Isso, Abi got a little depressed for having lost your own food. He asked Lyle, since when did she become a big eater? She innocently replied that she didn't know, and said it was his fault I hadn't eaten sooner. Also added that it was still growing, so it was natural for your appetite to increase. And Bei looked at her, and forgot that it was growing. Leaving it aside, Leo said there was unrest in the city, and told him not to leave. When seeing this, and Bei quickly asked what was going on. She revealed that important figures had arrived, confirming previous suspicions, and Bei thought this was normal, since they had speculated about this before. But Lyle hit the table suddenly, and said he didn't understand anything. She claimed she knew about their training, but warned him not to leave while the danger was increasing. When listening to her sincere request, and Bei stayed in. Even so, made sure he knew what he was doing, but her expression turned dark. Images of change your decision. Lil just asked him to be careful because he was your friend. After that, she decided to leave first, watching from, and Bei remained in silence. He thanked her concern and thought, but I didn't mean to stand there waiting for A. The next morning, woke up early and noticed that your cell phone had received a new email. By verifying, realized the efficiency of OS, worthy of a 6th-ranking martial artist. But before I could analyze it carefully, something strange happened. A violent storm surged around him and swallowed him completely. Moments later, he was cast onto a solid ground. Looked around, asked if where was, since the air was extremely cold. Suddenly, someone threw a set of clothes towards you, and told him, you were the, while exchanging, thought maybe he was in a virtual space. But the feeling of the cold made it hard to believe that. It was then that he noticed the standings not far away, facing a huge beast. Curious, asked if what was that. The system immediately informed that it was a sub-monster, known as the Polar Bear King. Your gaze then fell on the spear of OS, similar to your, and he realized that this was an opportunity to learn. Suddenly, the Polar Bear King let out a deafening roar, was just laughed calmly, and activated an ability through his spear. The next moment, advanced at high speed. The bear also walked forward, and the two collided violently in a fierce confrontation. Wesley quickly realized that the power of beast wasn't as scary as it looked, but the bear lifted a paw and crushed it on the ground with tremendous force. At this time, Wiz had already jumped in the air and coldly asked if the creature wanted to perish along with him. He raised the spear, and dark clouds began to form above. Lightning gathered and descended directly to your gun. With the decisive movement, aimed at the bear, and did his wave. The impact was devastating and crushed the surrounding ground. The polar bear whizzed directly into one of the eyes. But even after landing on the ground, the creature stayed alive, even more enraged. Seeing this, finally activated his technique, called the Eat Shadow movement. In an instant, 8 dark figures prepared, separating from your body and encircling the beast. Edie watched in amazement, while this seemed to divide into 8 distinct shadows. Each of them raised a spear at the same time, and the next moment, all attacked different parts of the polar bear's body simultaneously. After the attack ends, Wiz said he would let the creature live, but that a next offense would cost you your head. His laughter echoed around the place. While Abe watched from afar, the vote was above began to open again. The surprised cry of B-kun when the rotating portal connected directly to your room. He was expelled, dumbfounded in that space, and thrown back inside the room. A persistent pain remembered how scary and advanced could be the strength of a martial artist. However, he stopped thinking when you noticed a weak glow around you. Still confused, heard the system announce that he had successfully learned the skill, wave, and movement of the 8 shadows. And this story sticks around. If you like, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, check if bell is activated, and also consider becoming a member. It is very cheap and helps us a lot. While waiting for the next video, comment asking for part 2. And watch the video that is on your screen, which is also very good too. Log on to our Discord server to talk to us, see the name of this war, participate in the sweepstakes, and much more. Said that, I'm staying this way, and of course I see you in the next video.